It's Wednesday. You know what that means. Welcome everyone to AEW Dynamite. We are speeding towards Double or Nothing and we're showing no signs of slowing down, as tonight we have another stacked card for you. We certainly do, JR. Our main event will see the final of the AEW World Title Eliminator tournament between Kenny Omega and MJF, two that have never fought one another in singles competition. Who goes on to Double or Nothing to face Moxley for his championship? And there are more casino ladder match qualifiers for both men and women tonight. Brian Cage of Team Taz will face Kazarian, and Tessa Blanchard is back in action to take on Sarah Rowe. Chris Jericho faces Scorpio Sky as he looks to continue his hot streak. Plus, we'll hear from Cody Rhodes after he beat Orange Cassidy last week to become the number one contender for Miro's TNT title, and so much more. But up next, for all time's sake, the Young Bucks take on the team of Matt and Jeff Hardy. So, let's have a quick rundown of tonight's card. The Young Bucks against the Hardys should prove to be quite the opener to the night. Sarah Rowe against Tessa Blanchard, who is advancing to that casino ladder match at Double or Nothing. And the same goes for Brian Cage and Kazarian. Chris Jericho will step into the ring and face Scorpio Sky. We'll also be hearing from Darby Allin, who crashed out of the World Title Eliminator tournament last week, to Kenny Omega, who is in the final tonight in the main event against MJF. So we begin with both the Young Bucks and the Hardys. They are about to get underway for the opening match of this week's episode of Dynamite, when all of a sudden the AEW World Tag Team Champions, FTR, their music hits. Dax, Cash, Hangman and Tully Blanchard made their way out and stand at the top of the entranceway. We get 68 for this, but the World Champions, the World Tag Team Champions, are making their presence known, and it's a fantastic start to the night. It's a superb match, and it was always expected. These two teams always seem to put on a classic whenever they face one another, and it's the same case here, opening up Dynamite here tonight. And it is the Young Bucks, the number one contenders to FTR's Tag Team Championships, that go over, that defeat the Hardys. It was Matt Jackson pinning Matt Hardy after a Meltzer driver, teaming up with his brother there, Nick Jackson, for that double team. Matt Hardy, though, was the weak link, although saying that, he still put in quite a respectable performance, an experienced performance in the match, getting the crowd buzzing. The Young Bucks pick up the win then. Dax, Cash and Hangman Page, the three, stand on the rampway watching on. After a moment or two, they get attacked from behind by both Isaiah Cassidy and Mark Quinn of the Private Party. It's 3 versus 2 though, and fists are traded. The three seems to get the better of the Private Party, but then Will Hobbs makes his way out of the tunnel. What a sight. We haven't seen him in any physical action just yet. He goes straight for Hangman Page though. Those two have been staring one another down for weeks. Both trade off, but Hobbs gets the better of Page. The Young Bucks and the Hardys look to each other and agree to go and break things up, and they do. The Private Party head into the back. FTR want at them, but the Hardys hold them back, and Matt Jackson tries consoling Page, but Page just shrugs him off and makes for the back with the three. We saw last week the Young Bucks, well, it seemed like they wanted to reconnect with Hangman Page, but Page just stuck his middle finger in Matt Jackson's face, and it seems as though maybe they still want him with Page, but Page having none of it. We're then backstage as we see a smartly dressed Cody Rhodes. He bumps into the Best Friends and Orange Cassidy, Trent Beretta, Chuck Taylor, and says, "Hey, you guys seen Arn anywhere?" Orange shrugs, but doesn't answer. As he turns to Trent and Chuck, you respond with a, "Nah, sorry, Cody. We didn't even see him come into the arena tonight." Cody seems a little annoyed and says, "Alright, no worries. Thanks, anyway. Oh, and I'll see you guys out there for your match, Orange. I'll be up on commentary. You got this against Kip, eh?" Orange Cassidy shrugs again as Cody walks off in search of Arn. So Cody looking for Arn Anderson, who was alongside him last week for that number one contenders match. And then, in a dark room, there is a table. Dark Order members Stu Grayson, John Silver and Alex Reynolds surround it. Evil Uno walks in and stands near the empty chair at the head of the table saying, "What next for the Dark Order? How can the Dark Order succeed without the leadership of one Mr. Brody Lee?" It was a very difficult decision to make, but one we needed to make. The Dark Order now have a new Exalted One. Someone that will lead us and guide us towards our goal. He is almost here. Evil Uno taps the chair at the head of the table as a mark of remembrance for Mr. Brody Lee, but also respect maybe for the new Exalted One, who is to be revealed soon. I don't really want to see this as replacing Brody Lee, but more like someone that's got to fulfill the role as a leader for the Dark Order. Up next, in a decent match, Tessa Blanchard defeats Sarah Rowe in 9 minutes 10. So it's Tessa Blanchard that books her place at Double or Nothing. She will be in that casino ladder match for the women's. And what a rating for a women's match here in this AEW save, getting a 62. As Tessa Blanchard celebrates her win over Sarah Rowe in the ring, we see Brandy Rhodes backstage with the current AEW Women's Champion Toni Storm. Both have just watched the match together and are discussing who Storm's next title contender could be. Brandy then begins to discuss who Toni Storm will defend against at Double or Nothing. She doesn't really have much of an opponent at the moment. Gotta figure out a way of getting her on that Double or Nothing card. They both turn towards the cameraman and then ask him to leave. So Brandy, Toni, keeping match details under wraps, it seems. As we roll into our next segment, we see both the Hardys head into their locker room. Jeff Hardy seems a little upset though after coming up short against the Young Bucks tonight. Matt Hardy can see this and says, "Hey Jeff, look, the last 2 weeks haven't been that great for us, I know, but listen, AEW is a great place to be." And Jeff replies, "So you keep saying that. All I'm seeing though is the world laughing at us. We've gone from being the most successful tag team in the world, the most watched, we've toppled giants like Lance Archer, to this, losing week after week." Matt nods and says, okay, let me make this up to you. I'm going to go have a word with Tony Khan and see what can be done about our situation." Matt leaves as Jeff just shakes his head. So maybe we're seeing signs creeping in of big money Matt talking to Tony Khan about their current situations. We'll have to wait and see. We get 69 for that. What will Matt Hardy figure out for his brother Jeff? We'll probably find out next week here on Dynamite. In a quick little segment, we see Cody Rhodes making his entrance, and then he heads over to the commentary desk alongside JR, Excalibur and Tony Schiavone ahead of Orange Cassidy versus Kip Sabian. A match that I feel like I've done 100 times. It feels like it, but I don't think I have. But there we go. Orange Cassidy goes over Kip Sabian in 10 minutes 04 after a super kick. Orange Cassidy with those amazing in-ring performances. He gets a 61 in this match. Kip Sabian not too bad either with a 47. We've certainly seen lower in this save from Kip. We did have Trent and Chucky Taylor and Penelope Ford all at ringside for this match, but no Miro. No Arn Anderson. What's going on? Well, Miro's seen on the Tron. He looks full of aggression as he says, "Hey Cody, you're looking for your boy Double A? He's here with me." The camera turns towards Arn Anderson, who is a bloody mess on the floor. Miro begins to laugh. He places his hand on Arn and then wipes his blood over his chest. Then he adjusts his TNT title over his shoulder and walks away, leaving Arn in a puddle of his own blood. We switch back to the commentary desk where Cody Rhodes was sitting. He gets up and races to the back to go and help Arn Anderson. But obviously it's going to be too late to get his hands on Miro. He's already gone. The damage already done to Double A. So things turning a little personal here between Miro and Cody Rhodes. Miro laying his hands on Arn Anderson. Not just laying his hands on Anderson, but also busting him wide open. Up next, we see Santana and Ortiz inside the Triple R training gym. They've just finished the session. Conan walks up to them and congratulates them both on a great return to tag team action on Dark last week and the week before against Top Flight. That's 2 weeks in a row they took on Top Flight and beat them, but wants more from them. He then introduces them to Selena De La Renta, who he wants to be their promoter/manager. Santana and Ortiz are charmed by her and shake hands. She announces she already has a match booked for them next week on both Dark and Dynamite. Tells them it's only a matter of time before they are challenging for the AEW World Tag Team Championships. Wishes them luck and then leaves with Conan. So Selena debuting her cocky gimmick here in AEW, and it got an initial rating of great. And this is just really the beginning for Santana and Ortiz here in AEW. The Inner Circle well and truly put behind them now, it seems, as they're concentrating on themselves, and they've got one hell of a promoter slash manager backing them now. And then we see Chris Jericho seen in Gorilla watching one of the monitors. He just got done watching that promo from Santana and Ortiz, and as usual his lips are pursed. He seems a little annoyed, and then his music hits and he makes his way to the ring ahead of his match against Scorpio Sky. So nice little transition there from Santana and Ortiz into Jericho, who's pretty much watched his whole world, his whole inner circle just crumble all around him. In a bout that had great heat and good wrestling, Chris Jericho does go on to defeat Scorpio Sky in 12 minutes 38 after a Lion's Salt. I'm surprised it's not picking up on the Judas effect. He does have that as one of his finishes in this save. Jericho's gimmick getting a little stale. We're going to have to probably think about changing that at some point with the way things are going at the moment. His Inner Circle coming to an end. Well, it's another win for Jericho here in 2021. He is on a hot streak. But after the match, Sammy Guevara, who came out to ringside halfway through Jericho's match with his crutch, this did seem to spur Jericho on. This is how he managed to overcome the challenge of Sky. Sammy then has a mic in his hand. He climbs into the ring with a little difficulty and says, "Chris, what you said the other week really hit home. Made me realise that for the past 2 to 3 years, I've done nothing but waste my time being..." Sammy looks down at his crutch. "Your crutch. Santana, Ortiz, Hager and Cobb, myself, we've done nothing but hold up your career. And damn, it was a strain. We're dead to you, huh? Wow. Sticks and stones and all that. Listen, Chris, I'm done supporting you. I'm done being your crutch. And just like your career, Double or Nothing, I'm going to put you in the back of an ambulance." Sammy swings his crutch over the head of Jericho with force. It bends in half. Sammy stands over Jericho, then spits on him. Utter disrespect. Then he leaves, walking fine. So it seems Sammy Guevara back to full health, no longer injured after it was revealed that it was Jericho that attacked him, that took him out of that World Title Eliminator tournament. And it was Jericho that replaced him, and now Sammy Guevara, well, he's just laid it down that he wants to face Jericho at Double or Nothing, maybe in an ambulance match. There's a commotion backstage. There's a few refs, medics surrounding Matt Sydal, who is out on the floor surrounded by a lot of debris, trash cans tipped over, chairs on their sides. Looks like something has bulldozed its way through the backstage area. Gonna leave that until next week, and we're gonna reveal what happened here. Just trying to pull you in about that had good heat and decent wrestling. Brian Cage defeats Frankie Kazarian in 10:43. Cage with a flying elbow drop. Again, I'm not sure why it's picking up on the flying elbow drop, as it should be the drill claw from Brian Cage. We did change that. But Cage and Kazarian have pretty good chemistry. It did lift the match because it got good heat, decent wrestling, and it got 61. It's still a really respectable rating for this match as we head into that big main event. Brian Cage and Taz stand over Kazarian after the match. Cage wants to deal more punishment to Kazarian. He begins to hammer away at his head, then lifts him up and hits his drill claw. Taz applauds. Christopher Daniels rushes out, slides into the ring and starts to trade fists with Cage. Taz turns towards the entranceway and begins waving his arms. Jeff Cobb's music hits and he comes pounding out. What does this mean? Cobb a part of Team Taz? Cobb attacks Daniels and sends him on a tour of the islands. Cobb and Cage look at one another. Taz stands in between them, looking down the camera with a smirk. So Jeff Cobb aligning himself with Team Taz, it seems. Jeff Cobb needed something to do. Well, here he is, along with Brian Cage and Taz. Could be a real dominant force for 2021. A dark promo is then played at a skate park. Darby Allin is seen sat down with his skateboard that got broken in half last week at the hands of Gallows and Anderson. I've been dealing with shit my whole life. What Gallows, Anderson and Kenny did last week was nothing compared to what I've been through, what I've put my body through and what I will put my body through. You can break my skateboard all you want, you can break my body, but you will not break my spirit. I am relentless. I will keep getting back up. Never count out the one that sits alone, the one that's quiet, the one that's always thinking. One day, maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, next month or next year, I will be there to collect what's owed. Darby then throws his skateboard into a bin as he walks away. What does this mean then? Is Darby done with the skate life? Is he done with his skateboard? Very dark from Darby Allin as we get a 71 for this promo. And then we turn to JR, who goes on to say, well, folks, it's almost time for the main event here tonight. Kenny Omega against MJF, who is going to Double or Nothing to face Jon Moxley for his AEW World Championship. Whoever it is will partake in a contract signing next week here on Dynamite to make that match at Double or Nothing official. Plus, both men and women's casino ladder match qualifiers continue. Sammy Guevara returns to in-ring action also after his announcement earlier tonight that he will face Chris Jericho in an ambulance match. Hopefully we find out who's been wrecking havoc backstage, and we'll get an update on Arn Anderson after he was brutally assaulted by Miro here tonight. But anyway, on to the main event. It's an exceptional match, and it's Kenny Omega that defeats MJF in 18 minutes 51 after a one-winged angel. No one has ever kicked out of it, and MJF certainly couldn't in this AEW World Championship Eliminator tournament. So, there we go. The match has been made for Double or Nothing. Jon Moxley will put his AEW World title on the line against Kenny Omega. It's a fantastic match, this one. This main event for Dynamite. We're getting 84, the match getting the crowd buzzing. But the night is not over. Omega wins. Omega is going to Double or Nothing. He's in the ring celebrating. Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson are up on the ring apron applauding him. MJF is groggy. Death Triangle, Pac, Penta and Rey Fenix are at the top of the entranceway. They begin to slowly make their way down to the ring. They're here for MJF after what was said last week. MJF spots this, and in a flash he pushes both Gallows and Anderson from the ring apron onto Penta and Fenix. This distracts them, allowing MJF to roll out of the ring and run for the hills through the crowd. Penta, Fenix, Gallows and Anderson get to their feet, staring each other down. Omega is the only one in the ring now, until Jon Moxley slides in and attacks him from behind. We're still not done here. We've got one more segment to go, but it's a strong segment, that. 72. So Moxley in the ring now. Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson try to pull Kenny Omega away from Jon Moxley. Penta and Fenix try to pull Mox away from Omega. Pac gets a shot in on Mox, who isn't too happy about that. Omega bursts away from Gallows and Anderson as they topple into the Lucha Brothers. Omega and Mox go toe-to-toe, fist after fist. The Good Brothers and Lucha Brothers begin to argue amongst themselves. Then they start to shove one another. It breaks down. Pac leaves the ring smiling. He is loving the chaos. After a moment, he sees enough and whistles his Death Triangle amigos. Then they leave. It's Mox versus Omega, Gallows and Anderson, 3 versus 1. A beatdown commences on Moxley. The numbers game too much. Gallows and Anderson hold Mox up for Omega, who hits his V-trigger. A steel chair is then brought into play. They hold this up against Mox's head in the corner. Another V-trigger. It's devastating. Mox is out, and Dynamite ends with Kenny Omega holding the AEW World title above his head. Could we be seeing this? A Double or Nothing. So an even better rating for this final segment of this week's edition of Dynamite. So the AEW champion Jon Moxley laid out at the hands of the Elite, Kenny Omega, Gallows, Anderson. It's not looking good for Jon Moxley at the moment, but we've got quite a few weeks now to build this match between Omega and Mox, which has been years in the making. We've seen them in real life go at it at Full Gear. We saw it in real life as well, Revolution, just the other week. But hopefully I can bring it on home at Double or Nothing. I'm really looking forward to seeing how it works out there at Double or Nothing. But we get 78 for this episode of Dynamite. That's where we want to be week in, week out. 77 up towards 80 or so. So I'm really happy with this week's episode. Hopefully we can stay consistent now all the way up to Double or Nothing. So this week we had 10,000 fans in attendance. I think that's the highest we've had for Dynamite in some time. I think maybe overall in this save with AEW here on TEW, and we got a 2.19 TV rating. We had a total of 1.6 million viewers tuning in. On the All Elite Network, we had 310,000 watching. Over on TNT, we had 960,000. NXT this week, another poor, well, all depends how you want to look at it, really. Yes, they're up in the 70s, they got the 72, but compared to AEW, it's another poor show from them at 72. Their TV rating got a 2.01. They had a total of 1.56 million viewers. Over on BT Sport, 50,000 viewers. The USA Network, they had 1.5. That's the biggest network that they're on, really. And they still can beat us, which is always good to see. We are back in the game after we got dropped from ITV4 a couple of months ago. So all is good. Anyway, that is it for Dynamite. Hope you guys have enjoyed, and I'll see you all very soon for the next episode of AEW Dark.